Ayo, welcome back. Remember us.
We're the same people from the last video.
And if not, and you're new, I'm Crystal.
I'm OC.
I'm Chuku.
I'm Scott.
Nice to meet you all. But yeah, I mean, we do these little chats and we kind of just go off the cuff on whatever's on our mind, usually surrounding media and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, any pressing topics or things on the top of anyone's mind?
I mean, one of the interesting things that happened recently was we're fans of Brandon Sanderson's books, and Christine, who's not here with us right now, but she also reads those books.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. And Brandon Sanderson recently came out and talked about how they're pretty much in serious development of having either a series or movie adaptation of the Mistborn books.
Yeah. I think Brandon has mentioned that he wanted a movie adaptation. But, I mean, if he gets a series, that's good too.
That would be great, yeah. And depending on who does it, it could be, fantastic. I don't know. I think that is a really interesting series to try to adapt.
Yeah, well, let's give context. For me, I've read all three in the first trilogy, and then they have another one, New Era. That one has 4 books, and I've read 3 of them. The 4th one hasn't even released yet, actually. But
okay.
How about you?
I've only read the first 1.5 books of the Mistborn. I'm like halfway through. I'm halfway through the 2nd book right now, and it's a great series. It's a great story. It's a
I will say the first book is my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, this one...
Of the 6 books?
Yeah.
Well, they're not all... So the thing is that the Mistborn...
I just want read one.
No. It's not... It's just 3 books. It's just 3 books.
Oh, okay.
The Mistborn is a trilogy. And the one that he's talking about, the other one, it's a separate story. It's kind of set in the same world, but it can be confusing. And it's not really important.
It's not that I don't like the 2nd and 3rd ones. It's just the first one...
Yeah, the way they establish the world, I guess. And whatnot.
I would agree because I think that
you've read 1.5.
I mean, just like where it is right now, the story in the 2nd book has kind of been moving a little slower than I was hoping, or expecting rather.
And I reread the first one too recently, so maybe I have some recency bias for it. But I do remember I really loved the 3rd one though.
Oh yeah. I've heard that the conclusion of the trilogy is fantastic.
Yeah,
I heard that the way that he ends it is like you don't expect it, and it's great. So I'm like actually looking forward to finishing the 3rd book.
Yeah,
I think there's good opportunities there when I know you said you like all 3 of the books, but the first one's the best one. Even little gripes, if you're kind of switching over to a different medium, there's the opportunity there to make it perfect. I mean, not that it's very common that happens, but they could. There's opportunity to make the pacing really good instead of when you're reading it, you said it was kind of slow. So
yeah,
that's exciting.
I just really hope it's good, live action.
Yeah.
Because you've watched the Wheel of Time one, right? The live action, or have you not?
I didn't watch.
I've
heard some stuff about it. I've heard it's just really slow.
Yeah, it's okay in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be way better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel you. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. So I'm a little. Since Brandon's part of the project, I have way more faith in it. But at the same time, I just want it to be good.
It could be the thing that takes over from Game of Thrones. We'll see. But
there's a new Game of Thrones.
There's a new Game of Thrones. There's a new Lord of the Rings that's coming out this month. Oh my god.
Are you guys gonna watch that?
Yes.
Not Lord of the Rings. I know you love it.
Yes.
Your response.
That's not a question.
You're like, yes. Why would you ask? I meant
that?
Game of Thrones.
Probably. I'll probably watch it.
I don't know. I'm definitely more heavily skewing towards watching Lord of the Rings.
I watched Lord of the Rings because OC just loves it so much.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
Same. I'm gonna rewatch the movies too, just to really
I need to rewatch the movies.
I still need to watch it.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've never
watched
watched
them. Oh my god, you're gonna have fun.
I know.
But for Game of Thrones, you really have to be a fan of the Targaryens or interested at all,
Yeah.
to be into that. I feel like.
The thing is, it's it is still HBO. The thing is, it's still HBO. There were... I know that a lot of people didn't like how the original series ended, and we know the reasons why it kind of ended the way it did, with the writers basically
wanting
to get rid of
Star
it
Wars
quickly. Yeah,
people.
do Star Wars, and then they never got to do Star Wars anyway. But I don't think that. I think that this is. I'm expecting it to be really high quality. The House of the Dragon series. I'm expecting it to be really high quality.
Okay.
Actually, I kind of slightly disagree with the idea that the reason why season 8 was bad because the writers want to do Star Wars. Like, I do think that plays a role, but I also feel like partially what came to the problem with at least the later seasons of Game of Thrones is that, it's based off a book, and then at that point, once there was not really much material.
Yeah,
at
there
some
was
point.
multiple reasons.
So,
well, the thing is, I mean, this isn't based on any book either.
Yeah, I know.
So
what?
The House of the
Well,
Dragon.
actually, there's definitely some lore that George R. R. Martin has written for it. So they're probably going off of that lore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They're hopefully going off of that lore.
How do you guys feel? Because I mean, I've had these thoughts for years, especially like watching throughout Game of Thrones and just hearing people compare Game of Thrones with Lord of the Rings and the comparison, because we're gonna have they're gonna be going at the same time.
That's true.
Starting this month, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones.
This is gonna be a fun thing.
It's gonna be interesting.
They're so different.
Yeah, they're so different.
Sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
They're so different.
But the thing is, how do you feel about I obviously love Lord of the Rings, with my heart, soul. But the criticism that I've heard, at least over the years, has been oh, Game of Thrones, it's realistic. It's it's dark and gritty. It's like Lord of the Rings, they all live. That's not realistic.
Dang it, now I'm being spoiled, but whatever.
Well, they don't all live, but compared to Game of Thrones.
Because everyone died on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, compared to Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
they pretty much all live.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of a lot of the criticisms that I was hearing back then,
Game of
especially.
Thrones.
And I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
Okay, so I definitely have a thing about criticisms like this. So I think this has to do with our media changing. Because it's let's take Breaking Bad. Why Breaking Bad was such a compelling show in its genre comparing to what a compelling show was in I don't know, in the early 90s or something like that. If you notice, there's a sort of different media taste,
Yes.
right? So I think that has to do a lot with media taste change, where I think that Lord of the Rings, the strong points was that, it's showing those symbols of virtuousness, showing those
good
symbols
versus
of
evil.
what happens when you go for honor, while Game of Thrones is showing more of everyone has flaws and whatnot.
Struggle.
Yeah. So, but I think the reason why most people are biased is because it also is a reflection of society, right? Because we're in that time where Game of Thrones is coming out, we're starting to see how all these corrupt people are still winning, while all these quote unquote not corrupt people are getting screwed over. So people want something that relates to them being dude, I tried being nice to this person, but I still get screwed over. Right. So I think that's the reason why people have these things. But overall, it just depends what angle you look at it. I can still, even though I haven't seen Lord of the Rings, I can still respect what it did. And I still think it has a good place in media. Same with Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones, especially for TV, it did a lot of innovative things. It broke a lot of the norms. So yeah.
I feel,
Well said.
well said. Because the whole thing is in Game of Thrones, Ned Stark dies because he's too honorable.
Yeah.
But in Lord of the Rings, Ned Stark becomes king because he's honorable. He's the quintessential honorable character. And so I feel I've always felt weird about kind of propping up something like Game of Thrones because it's as being more realistic because the honorable character dies. It's I get the it's coming from a very what's the word? Cynical perspective that makes sense, but I don't know if that makes it a great story. It makes sense based on where we are in our culture today. And what we see, going on in our world. But does that mean that it's a better story?
It's a good story. I think Lord of the Rings is definitely more, between the two, more fantasy. It's more escapism for sure. I feel like Game of Thrones was more medieval, and that's why there were so many deaths and like
Yeah,
crazy
but
gore.
I think
and
it's-
stuff.
I also think, sorry to add, I also think we're also looking at different, approaches in terms of where the characters are at, right? Like, for example, you can make an argument to be a king, you need to be honorable. But what helps you get to one place doesn't always help you to another place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that aspect where he dies because he's honorable, also is well justified as him becoming king because he was honorable.
Yeah, and to your question about like whether it makes it a good story, I feel like character deaths have to be done right regardless of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a way to do it correctly and a way to do it incorrectly. Game of Thrones clearly has done it both ways.
Yeah.
Like Varys' death, that was out of nowhere and stupid.
Mm.
That was in season 8, I think, right?
Yeah,
Or yes.
the last,
Season 8, yeah.
But
last season.
but there's like so many deaths in Game of Thrones that kind of sucked.
Mm.
But as there are good deaths as well, so
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like how you do character deaths versus like, yeah.
Yeah, I think but even more so than that. I think that my whole thing has just been that I would always prefer to watch The Lord of the Rings versus Game of Thrones, even though I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is great, but it's like Lord of the Rings is like the perseverance of like spirit. And
Yeah.
like, and
It's
you
a
know,
it's a classic good versus evil, and
it's very classic. Like we've
Yeah.
seen tons of stories like this where it's like you all band together and you have like a common goal, a
Yeah.
common evil that you can work
And
against, and you know, and there's complications arise, right? And there's like other evil characters, but it's
right. And I think that's why
yeah.
those stories, in my estimation, they last longer. Like there's reasons why we still love Star Wars. Like it's the rebels versus the Empire. There's reasons why those stories that fit into that kind of mold, they seem to have longer lifespan than Game of Thrones, which I love and respect. It deals with the inner conflict and turmoil of these individual characters, and they have little bits of good and little bits of evil, which is that is more realistic. But is that the type of story that survives for a long time?
I think that still depends, but I do agree with you, because I will make an argument where it's like with stories in general, it's like at the end of the day, the whole point of having like an antagonist or something is to have sort of an opposing side, some sort of like a victor versus a loser is the way I say it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have shows where it's like no one's really a victor,
Yeah.
on one hand, it's a realistic approach of like, everyone's getting screwed over or something.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it also
little
sort
unsatisfying.
of, yeah, it's unsatisfying, because then it's like, what's the narrative going? But I do think that
And I
we
think
have
that
to.
might have been something that like caught up with the show at the end. It's like I always viewed it in that way, and like I kept Game of Thrones in this like box in my own head. But I feel like with other people, when it came to the conclusion of Game of Thrones, that kind of caught up with them. The whole idea that like there is really no protagonist antagonist in this entire story. Like there's no reason why you should be clinging on to, like, the people were disappointed with how Dany's character ended up. And it's like
even Jon Snow. A lot of people.
Even Jon Snow, yeah.
That sounds the worst.
Yeah, because he didn't even kill the Night King. Like everyone was hoping.
yeah, like there were a lot of
he
those
had
things.
really no actual like solid arc in my opinion.
And I think that's a lot of that is why people were disappointed, because
Hell yeah.
That's in my
Getting, like, angry
my
all
thing.
over.
But my thing has always been that it's been consistent. Like my thing, I like season 8 as much as I like a lot of the other seasons, because
Yes,
for
television,
me
no.
the story was consistent. I felt that the story was consistent. That the way that they had been telling the story, it was consistent until the end. And so when Dany has her turn, I was like, oh, this makes sense, because it was kind of established here.
Because this
And
is
then,
how the world is.
this is how the world is.
It
Like
is.
you're constantly disappointed. The only reason I would have been like mad would have been if they killed Arya. But that was my whole thing. Is like they keep disappointing people in the show, and that's why people love it. But now it's at the end, and the conclusion is something that should have like.
I
I think
that.
I could see that, but I think it goes back to execution, right? Because I think that, I don't think any of these outcomes would be depressing if it was executed in a progressively reasonable way. I think that's my argument towards that.
Uh-huh.
Not to mention, I think you're conflating themes with certain I guess story beats. Because the themes of Game of Thrones is subvert your expectations, but that doesn't mean that just because it's going to subvert your expectation, that doesn't mean that
you have to do it bad.
No, it means you can cut a character's head off and be like, well, because it's subverting your expectation, this character's not dead. That's the theme of Game of Thrones. No, if it's consistent within the groundswell of storytelling, that's the issue. Inconsistent with storytelling.
Because just because their thing, like their shtick, was like subversion, I think it all came down to execution too. I think that's a good way to put it. It's like, yeah.
A lot of these questions are a little bit too big to ask of like the whole story thing, questions about whether or not this makes for a good story, right? I feel like there's always a way to make it a good story with that thing, but it just has to be done in a certain way. And for Game of Thrones, it didn't do that.
I feel like that whole, how do you feel Mistborn kind of fits into this? Because
Mistborn does character deaths and stuff like that great.
I think
it's amazing.
I think that, I feel like Mistborn, I mean, okay, I had to put in the story where this character he's a lawful good character, and he is king, but there are a lot of problems with, as far as I see, with how he's ruling that are not practical. And it reminded me of I was thinking about, this character in Game of Thrones would be dead. Like this guy would be dead, and I kind of understand it, and it makes it seem, I don't know, it makes it seem
I think for that
disappointing as far as
particular
the comparison
example, just keep reading on.
Just keep reading on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
So when they do, you said it was a series they're making live action.
I think it's either series or movie. They haven't confirmed.
So you're saying the book itself is solid.
Yeah,
how can
100%.
How can they mess it up? Like if they go off the material?
Well, the author is going to be involved in
the way that it would be messed up is if pacing was bad, or if like the visuals, the production of it were like a little wonky. As far as
the actual story, it should be like a 1-to-1 to the book then, right?
I hope so. I mean,
it would. The thing that I think is going to be their challenge is transferring the magic system to screen, because it's a very specific magic system. It's a very interesting magic system that they have there, and I think it matters how they visualize and conceptualize that for visual media. In my opinion.
Yeah, that's always the problem with like converting books to any kind of live action thing. Yeah. Especially because like I feel like you have a lot more freedom in like animation and but then live action you have to think of like effects and like explaining.
Yeah, there's not too much actually. I can't think of anything that's like extremely hard to do.
It would be I think the thing
other than the steel and iron like lines.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But just they don't always have to show that.
They don't. But that's the thing. It's like they have to make a decision. Okay, how are we going to show it this way or that way? And then how are we going to do it in a way that is unique, without it looking like weird, or without it looking like it's copying something else?
Yeah. But they don't have to. I feel like they only have to show it on certain scenes, and then after that they
don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on how they do it.
Is this a spoiler, or can you explain to me what that is?
It's just part of the magic system. It's not really a spoiler.
They explain it. If you read the book, it explains it in the first few chapters. But basically, it's a magic system where you have different people in this world who can utilize metal to basically have superpowers. And based on whatever metal you can not bend, but like they eat it basically, and they store it in their body, and then they can burn it like internally.
A lot of Brandon's magic system is like source of power. So you have to have some sort of resource as that power for your magic.
Their body's like a kiln, and they can use.
Yeah. So it's not like Harry Potter where you just need a wand and then you're good. It's like
you're converting your food to energy.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Exactly. To fire.
So you can run out of metal and you have to get more of it. And there's different metals do different things.
How do you eat it? Is it ground up? You eat it by the spoonful or like chunks?
they have vials.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but the Mistborns, they can utilize all the metals.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
So they're Mistborn characters who are super rare that they can, you know, use all metals, whereas everyone else can usually do one. And there's like 7 or 8.
It's like
or
vials of like
there's a couple.
melted metal.
Oh, so I'm curious. Are the Mistborns in this story like the
metals can be powder, can be a lot of different.
Yeah.
Are they like the outcasts because they're Mistborns, or they're the superiors? Because they're
No,
Mistborns?
they're more so the superior.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
They're
don't
superior.
know. Now I'm like, don't tell me.
Yeah. Don't spoil too much.
I don't know. I just want to get an
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Okay.
That does sound cool though. Metal. Metal.
You just eat metal.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, we were talking about like pushing and pulling metals. So if there's like something metal here, they'd have to visualize like a line to that metal for pushing or pulling during one of the parts, because it does sort of deal with the story a little
Oh, it
bit.
has to be a line.
Yeah, they described it as like they can see lines. Yeah.
You think Magneto would fit well in that universe?
He would be, yeah. I mean, Magneto. I mean, it's not necessarily the same as Magneto's powers, but it would be because the people who are just like, because you would have normal people, not normal people, but like people would be only able to do one. So you'd have people who can only push metals away, or people who can only pull metals
Oh,
to them.
interesting.
And then
So you're a pusher or puller. Interesting.
yeah. And so
Yeah, but those are only 2 powers out of a lot.
those are 2,
so-
and then there's metals
There's
that
a lot
make
of
you
other ones,
stronger.
but-
There's
Okay.
metals that make you
But yeah, just read
other
it.
stuff. Yeah.
just
Okay.
read it.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
that
tough.
does
I'm not
sound-
really a book person, so
That
that'd be a
sounds really
challenge.
interesting though. I like that unique kind of magic.
Yeah.
For that line one where you visualize it, if something was obstructing, would you just have to visualize that thing out of your way, or like
Yeah, like if there was a metal behind that wall, then
you just have to imagine the wall's not there?
yeah, it just goes into the wall. The line just goes into the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's cool because most of the magic stuff doesn't involve any sort of special effects. It's really just
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
true. They would have to, because but
other
even
than one of them.
Yeah,
Other than one of them,
because
that one was gonna be hard to visualize.
there's magic. There's one where you can like sense if other people are using magic. So stuff like that can
It'd be like a psionic, like a little like circle or
maybe,
something.
maybe.
Other than the most powerful one, I think most of them should be easy to do.
Okay. Wow.
ATM.
Yeah.
Well, that even if I don't read the book, that sounds like something I would want to see
Yeah.
if it's done well on television.
Yeah. I have high hopes since Brandon's part of it.
Do you
so.
think it should be television or it should be a movie?
He wants it to be a movie, or he thinks it would be
Brandon
better as a
Sanderson
movie.
wants it to be a movie.
Because it's only 3 books, right?
It is.
It
It,
could
it
be
can be done in a
done.
movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, it can be done. As far as like where I am with this second book and how like the story has been, it can be done. Both of these first books
I
can
mean,
be
you
done.
said the
in
second one was
2
kind of
movies.
slow. I feel like that
It's-
could be grounds for making it like
Shorter.
cutting the fat and doing a movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
It can be done in a movie.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
What were we talking about before?
Just that. I mean, Game of Thrones and Lord of the
Oh,
Rings.
right, there we go.
Lots of fantasy content coming out. I know we're seeing a lot of like sci-fi come back too, right? With Dune and what came out recently. Well, I mean, I know.
For the Lord of the Rings one, how many episodes is there?
It's a good question. Oh, I think I don't know if this is accurate. My memory. I think they planned total. The whole series is going to be like 50 episodes or something.
Whoa, that's
But they have like
a lot.
But they have like that might be wrong.
Well, like
I might
5
be wrong.
seasons or.
I
Yeah,
might
that'd be
wrong.
nice. 5 episodes, 10 episodes.
If there's anything about that.
I don't think I'm gonna watch the Game of Thrones one. I think I'll wait to hear the reception.
Me too.
I was gonna do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll watch it after.
Yeah.
Well, if people say it's like, oh, it's amazing, then I'll check it out. But
Yeah, fantasy shows is hard because they haven't had a good rep recently. I mean, starting with Game of Thrones, which
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't like the ending of, and Wheel of Time is slow. I couldn't get into Witcher, so like now I'm like, okay, what's
yeah,
gonna be
Witcher
the
season
next-
2 was pretty good though.
I thought it was decent.
I don't know, I can't watch it for some reason, and I love Henry Cavill. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like, yeah, I mean, I would love for a good fantasy show to come out and just like really draw me in.
Yeah. Normally I would just watch it, but like it
First
burned me
season.
so hard. Game of Thrones.
But
season six burned me
I
so
think
hard.
Yeah.
again the appeal of Game of Thrones again goes back to not just subverting your well, I guess it is a subvert your expectations in terms of what you expect from a fantasy show, because most of fantasy shows we're always expecting again virtuousness, or expecting this sort of like Disney kind of fairy tale, and then you see Game of Thrones and it's like, you know, you got nudity, you got all this.
Which is an interesting.
stuff.
They made an interesting comment with the Game of Thrones stuff about like, hey, don't worry, we're still gonna have like, you know, sexual content, and I was like, I don't know if that was like an important thing.
Oh no, there's some.
Don't
they really
worry.
did.
There's
There's a
nudity.
lot of people who they wouldn't watch a show and then they heard there was titties and they're like, oh,
That is a thing that happens.
so that was a thing.
No,
But
no titties. This isn't real. This is not real life.
exactly. So, but my point is, I feel like the fact that it was such a different in terms of our expectations towards fantasy, I think that had a big appeal.
I feel like
towards it.
season 8 Game of Thrones has made subvert your expectations a trigger phrase for me.
Trigger words.
No, it's the Star Wars movies kind of did also. It's been a long running thing that people have not liked recently. Just subverting your expectations, you know.
I mean, if people hate subvert your expectations, then don't watch comedy. Comedy always subverts your expectations.
Okay, that's not the issue.
No one's complaining about comedy.
It's the
Exactly. That's my point.
no, Chico, it's the phrase.
I know. It's
That's
the
tricky.
phrase. That's my
It's not the fact that it happens. It's more so like people using it as
a
an
phrase.
excuse for why it's bad.
Okay. I mean, do people really use that as an excuse?
That's what Game of Thrones did.
Yeah, like the people that create the media, you know.
So the creators actually said, "Oh, it wasn't. We just subverted your expectations. That's why
Tons
you're
of people
complaining."
do that. Yes, directors,
Okay.
writers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was a common like defense. I thought that was just a natural.
Well, that was mainly from Game of Thrones for me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was just again thinking in terms.
Anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna check it out
Yeah.
until I hear good reception. If I don't, then I just will never check it out.
Of, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If I was
Yeah,
a
let
fan
us
of the
know, see.
Targaryens,
I'll let you know.
maybe, but I'm not a fan of a Targaryen to do. Now, if it was the
I mean,
Lannisters, I'd be a different story.
I just think that they
You-
Yeah.
gave the Targaryens such a bad rep at season 8 that it's so hard for me to get into this.
Yeah.
Like, really want to see more Daenerys? Not really. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm more excited by the fact that it's HBO, you know,
Yeah.
and
HBO.
it's an adaptation
We'll
of this
see.
world.
Yeah, like how was like I just like look at the main protagonist. I'm like, this is just Daenerys' brother. Looks the same,
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
just
talks
like-
the same.
I don't want to see another Daenerys. Like, her character is wrecked.
Yeah, and like I know the main guy of the Game of Thrones series starred in Morbius, and now I can't like unsee it.
Okay, this is actually an interesting thing because we're talking about Game of Thrones. So it's funny how many people hate season 8 so much that at some point now people are saying it's not canon. Because this is the argument, right? Because the definition of canon has to do with continuity and consistency.
Everything
so,
after Jon Snow's death is
So
not
basically, if it's not consistent, therefore it's not like it's this like logical.
Okay,
leap.
the argument that it's not consistent is not an actual argument because it's consistent. You can be mad that they sped it up too much, but it's consistent. Like we need to dispel with that nonsense.
I know, but I just find it hilarious how logical leaps people would go just
Yeah.
because they hate something, where it's like, well, actually, it's not canon. Like,
Yeah, it's clearly canon to the show. The show is the show. But
Yeah.
like, it's not canon to the books if you want to go read the books.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
read the books. Stop complaining. I mean, complain about George R. R. Martin not writing the books. You can complain about that.
Yeah, why was he taking so long?
I don't know,
Like,
but
this
y'all
is his fault.
are having a better
No,
experience
no,
than those
don't
of
say
us
that.
who have read Patrick Rothfuss's books because I've been waiting on that third book for like 10, 15 years now.
Name of the Wind?
Yeah, the
That
third
series?
book in that series, the Name of the Wind series. I
I thought the second book kind of like fell off for me.
did it. It's not as strong as the first book in my opinion, but I still like waited for that third book. I read that second book when it came out, and I was in like high school, and it's 2022, and he still hasn't written the third book yet.
But is he
So-
working on it?
He said he is, but he's
Is
been
it the
saying
final?
that for the last
The
10
final of the
years.
series?
Well, here's the thing though. Like, I feel like
It was intended to be a trilogy, but I don't know if it's gonna be.
It's his
still-
magnum opus. Like, gotta take a
Yeah.
time.
is he
I
is
feel
he
like-
working on other stuff? I'm curious.
He wrote another book. in
Okay,
that
that
time.
makes sense.
Oh,
That makes
okay.
sense.
So you're not gonna get the third
here's the
book.
thing. I feel like audiences or readers watchers shouldn't necessarily demand things from the creators, because like if the creators are, especially for a book, if the creators feel like
patient.
I know the creators want to create their thing on their own time.
Patient.
Like,
no, I get it.
it's like their story. It's
I agree with you, because sometimes like you also like if he lost his inspiration and then like you write something to write it, I wouldn't even want to read that book.
Yeah. So if certain things happen in their lives where they just need time to rest or a break, even if it's a decade-long break, then I feel like they should get it and not have all these people being like, "Where's the third book? Where's the third book?" and always have that constantly in their head, and make it a bad experience to actually write that book because they always have it in their head.
I get
that too,
that.
because
I
it
get
diminishes like also like the credit of like writing the first 2 books, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I'm curious. So, do you care? Like, so let's just say they hypothetically are writing other projects, but they still haven't done the sequel. Do you still agree with that statement?
Yeah, because they're probably doing these other projects because they feel like they need something different in their lives
like
for a
to
little
refresh your creativity sometimes is like you need something different, right? Like it's the same for any kind of art. Right?
Exactly. That's why for YouTube, I these ideas, I feel this way because I make YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, I get that, but I guess as someone who's played Sonic Adventure 2, I'm curious, would you really be like, hey, let's not have a Sonic Adventure 3, despite that you loved Adventure 2?
Okay.
See, this is where I'm coming in.
That's a very interesting example, but like,
there's all these other Sonic games that no one else cares about, but Adventure 2, the one that people care about, let's not make a sequel, and it's been...
But I feel like that's different because it's like...
There's multiple creators.
Yeah, exactly. There's multiple creators.
It's the same person who, like, is, like, the same person creates the main game is the same person as the main game for all these.
But I feel like you're assuming a lot of things, like, that's a company, like...
It is a company.
It was what, Sega?
It's still Sega.
It's still Sega. So they, as a team, as a company, still need to be like, okay, green light for Adventure 3. As a collective, it's kind of different if you're a single person, like writing a book or something, or like being an author and writing a book.
That is, but the person who's like the main creator of the game is like the main leader of Sega. So it's like he has the final say to have it on there. Right. He just doesn't want to put it on there.
But at the same time, games are also slightly different in that they're very much trying to pander to like the players.
I'm just saying, bruh, like, you don't think any Sonic fan would not buy Sonic Adventure 3?
No, I feel you.
Like, I feel like that literally, like, I feel like everyone will stop hating Sonic. No, I'm serious. I'm saying that because I'm just saying, like, for a game, like, the only thing now that's been helping it is the movies and maybe a couple of games. Yeah. So it's like something that can literally save the franchise.
I think they should definitely do it. I don't know why they're not. Like, they're still making Sonic games.
Yes, and they're ignoring it.
Yeah, but like it's different. It's like
it's different with books.
It's different with books
because like it's such a long form piece of art. Like musicians, we've seen musicians reinvent themselves all the time because like you know you can have a whole album and have your next one sound different. Yeah. If you're like a writer, it's like you're world building, right? And if you lose interest in that and you have a new idea and you just literally like you get a brain worm, you can't not write about that. You write about it as much as you can because that's your new inspiration. And yeah, sometimes like your old muse, like your old interest is like, it's done for. And it's unfortunately, it's like, you know, you're always going to have pressure from your publisher and whatnot. Yeah. But like independent writers, like fan fiction writers specifically, this was like kind of an argument that I was seeing on Twitter too. Like a lot of unfinished series and stuff. And like, there's like this huge debate going on and like really don't like pressure, like, especially writers to like write because it's like, that's just not how it is, right?
Yeah.
Because you have these ideas and there's like no way that you can force yourself to write about something you have no interest in anymore. You lose your...
Yeah. I get it. I think it's what it is from the audience perspective.
Yeah.
It's very different when you are reading a series of books, especially when there's a cliffhanger or something like that, and you know, it's different from like if you're waiting for an album from your favorite artist. Like you can always go back and revisit the previous works of music, and there's no like overarching narrative for the most part that you're waiting to see the ending of this story.
Yeah.
Same with a video game. It's like you can always go back and replay the old video games. It's different on the audience perspective where it's like I want to know what the conclusion of the story is.
Yeah,
I get the whole thing is like, yeah, the author lives their own life. They are the real person. You got to respect that. I get it.
Yeah.
I think we're all understanding each other. I think we got to the bottom of this.
We understand it. I'm just being really petty right now. Like, for example,
No,
I want like Hunter x Hunter. We still haven't got Among Us since 2014.
No, it's totally natural to be frustrated. And sure, you know what? If it's like a more well-known author with a huge publisher, maybe it's okay to be a little like vocal about it. I think maybe it's good to be more sensitive if it's like an independent artist, for sure.
I think you can express whatever you want, but don't like demand
that's
things of
true.
other people.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And like,
I mean, you can't
that's
demand
fair.
that he make you, make.
What are you gonna do? Like kidnap him? Like
just
No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't demand
Misery,
Sega to make a
literally.
good game that can save their business. But hey, whatever. Hey, that's
you can request it. Like, please make a freaking Sonic Adventure 3, but to bash them for not doing it.
Okay, bashing and criticizing,
because they don't.
Exactly.
Do it. Like that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
That's
story.
like
I
being
agree.
very disrespectful.
I agree on that.
That's like toxic internet behavior.
Yeah, that is
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't engage in that.
We don't at all. That's why he supports Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah,
He's not toxic.
I'm not gonna be part of the toxic internet.
He ain't part of that toxic internet.
Hey, I'm not demanding any more Game of Thrones, so you don't have to worry about me.
Man. Speaking of HBO shows, are you guys excited for the Last of Us show that's coming out next January 1st next year?
What?
The Last
The
of
Last
Us is
of
the
Us.
game, right?
Yeah,
The zombie.
Oh
game?
yeah,
Zombie
with
game. Pedro
Pedro
Pascal.
Pascal.
I haven't played it, so
Oh, you haven't played it?
Yeah.
It's a great game. That one and the Last of Us and Last of Us 2 are probably the best narrative stories in video games that I've played.
nice.
I'm excited to watch it.
See, that's where I question things, because it's like the appeal of that is that it's a narrative video game. But just because it's a narrative video game, I don't know how much that's going to make it even better on TV. If that makes any sense.
It'll be an interesting.
So it's like, imagine if you listen to a rap song and the appeal of it was that everything was cohesive, like you're reading a script.
Yeah.
But now they're going to actually make a movie based off that song, where it's like basically or a book or something. Basically, it's like the thing that made it appealing what made it appealing was it was in a different medium, but now it's in the medium that people would expect.
A narrative story
music
to be
is
in.
different. I think music is different because there's the skill of putting that story to
obviously
music
there's
and
that.
having, stuff like that. But with the video game, I think it's a little bit more direct. Whereas like you can do it's more so like going from book to movie.
I get it. I guess my point with the video game thing is like, I'm not saying like it can't be a bad story. I'm just saying like I feel like the appeal of what made it a good, for example, I feel like the barrier.
It's a good story to begin with.
Yeah, it's like the barrier of entry is a little bit going to be tougher now that it's in a story medium as opposed to a video game medium. Where the video game medium, the barrier of entry is probably, there's not many good video game stories.
I think that
it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think
I
the
feel
barrier to entry is none to watch it as a television show because it is a good drama.
It's a fantastic story.
What I
that a lot
mean
of
by
people aren't
barrier
exposed
entry,
to.
I mean in terms of like, I guess in terms of like competition. Like, for example, I would expect, what I mean by that is like, I don't expect a video game to have an Oscar-winning story. So therefore, if a video game has like anything like a Pixar-worthy
I see
story,
what you're saying.
then it's like, that's amazing. Meanwhile, if I watch a movie, I have a different expectation. So if it has...
So it's sort of just like judging it by its medium versus judging it for the story itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But there's something to be said about the fact that it already is coming into it with its own established IP. And so it has a fan base.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to compete on that same level.
Again, then that's fair. That's fair. I guess my argument isn't that it won't be good. I'm just saying that the idea of it being like, okay, because it already has a good story here, that means it's going to be a good story here. Like,
it's like you said, it all comes down to execution.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Exactly.
I do feel like it would be harder to do it in a game versus a movie. So because they have already done it successfully in a game, it'd probably be easier to transfer it that way.
Yeah.
Versus vice versa.
I still think it has like mass appeal though, because it's like even people that aren't in the gaming community have heard of it. They know it's like a great drama. Yeah. And it's like it does deal with like zombie type things, and we've already seen success on like The Walking Dead, and that show like sucks now, so people are like, those people will be looking for something new to watch. So I think it could be good, and I think it could get a good following, just the show itself, outside of like people that have already experienced the story through the game. But yeah, I think it's got a good chance to like be really good
for sure. Yeah, it has a good
It's got a
chance.
fighting chance.
I guess my thing is just the conclusion of, okay, because this did good here, it's going to be good there.
Yeah.
Where it's like
There's no way
the
to
barrier,
know for sure.
The barrier of entry is where I'm
predict
kind
You
of at.
can't predict that.
Are we recording?
Yeah, I totally forgot to press that button.
Oh wow!
we still have backup audio, but
Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
What do you
Down.
want to do?
I thought that one's recording, isn't it?
yeah, the cameras
audio.
are recording, but the audio is not.
The audio's not.
Yeah. no, we have backup audio from the camera,
Oh, okay,
but,
that's perfect.
but it's still not going to sound as good,
Whatever.
which is
Okay.
All right.
yeah.
Whatever. Oh,
I'm so
I guess
sorry,
we
guys.
just wrap it
Should
up.
I?
Yeah, let's wrap
Press
it up. You can
something?
press
let's
it.
just
Yeah,
wrap it
Which
up.
one is it?
it's the middle one, the red.
Red.
Yeah. Okay, I should have. I'm sorry. That
It's
was-
okay.
worries, no
No, it
worries.
happens. I mean, we've totally lost audio for like older things too.
Yeah.
But at least we.
What were we saying? I mean, we're gonna wrap up Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, it's always a gamble making any type of like
Adaptation.
like popular media, right? And like, you know, at the end of the day, these networks want to like make money as much as like the creators want to make good art, and then there's gonna have to be like that meld. So yeah, there's no way to say that it's going to be good or even successful. But like they are starting with a very good base, like, you know. So I think it is an easier medium too, because the game is already so cinematic that like adapting it to a show, I wouldn't say would be like easy, you know, it's not easy making any kind of like media like that, but it would be like, I don't know, like I think it's doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, passable isn't. I guess when I mean good, I'm not talking about it being like something where it's like It's not like what I mean in terms of like horrible. Like I definitely think it would be passable, but I guess again, it's like I guess quality wise, like if it's, and I guess you can make a high. I'm making a high assumption, but it's like if we're saying that this story, or at least if we're comparing this, if the story is that popular for it in terms of like this is a good story, right? Or the I guess the emotions people get from this story, they might get the same emotions they get for something like watching Breaking Bad in terms of quality. Like if the quality in this thing can conversing those the quality to TV, that's where
Another
I think
thing
that we don't want to have the same expectations. Not to say that it can't be a passable show in terms of like,
so here's the thing. I think it should be an important aspect of this discussion is the fact that this is HBO, and HBO is right now the king, and has been for years, the king of scripted television. Like everything that they do as scripted is top notch. For whatever reason, they figured out a way to make all of their scripted stuff like high quality. Like this isn't like a Netflix show. This isn't going to be a Hulu show where it's like we don't know what's going to happen. It's not going to be Disney Plus. Like it's not. This is
the quality has always been consistent for all their scripted media.
For HBO specifically, and so that's another retion why you take the HBO
Formula?
reputation,
That's
and
fair
then
point.
you have the fact that this is a well-beloved story in a previous in a separate media. I think that those two can be enough to
The
get
fact that you
excited
mentioned
about.
HBO, then that's definitely something that's already a really good
Again,
foundation. So.
I guess my question is like, how could they mess it up then?
Right,
Yeah.
right. How could they?
Just making it bad. I guess. Just make it good.
That, or I guess they go a different angle that the fans don't want. But
They should know better than to do that. I think that would just really piss people
Honestly,
off.
the fans can be a problem, especially with Last of Us. There was a whole controversy around Last
The
of Us
second
2.
game,
Yeah.
which is also very good. I thought the story was great.
I thought it was better than the first one.
That's
But I
valid.
almost didn't play it because the fan backlash on that story was so extreme. And so sometimes you don't listen to the fans.
That's
honestly.
true. That's true.
Because of the way that the backlash was going with the fandom, I almost didn't play it. But then Andrew and Roger played it.
It's so
and they
good.
told me
Yeah.
that it was great, and so I got it, and I was like, oh man, this is better than the first one.
It's
and
like chilling. Like it's
the fans
crazy.
didn't like it for like one or two obscure reasons that I don't. It's not obscure. It's kind of a big thing.
You kind of see it in the beginning at the game. Like if you don't like it, then don't even play the rest of the game.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's a situation where the story was at the forefront of what was happening, and so something happens with the story that, for people who loved the original game, it ruined the playability of the game for them. But it was because of the story required this thing to happen. And so you couldn't play the game the same way that you played the game previously.
Interesting.
And so, I mean, that to me, I appreciated that from a storytelling perspective, even though some people didn't necessarily appreciate it from the gameplaying perspective.
Wait, are they having the same writers from the game?
I don't know.
Story. I think that's a very important question, because if they are, then I'd love to see their. It seems like they really want. To me, it seems like they wanted to create a good story, but then they had to do it in a video game, and then they're like, I can just imagine them being like, well, we actually get to do a show.
Yeah.
How much that would be. Like an advantage for them. So if that's the case, that's even more interesting.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other adaptations that you guys are excited about or want to happen or want to see?
Let me think.
No, we'll save it for next time. We've definitely talked quite a long time. Sorry about the audio, guys.
Yeah, if you notice a difference in audio quality, no, you didn't.
They're gonna notice. It's actually huge.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our discussion on Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Mistborn, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Peace. This should be. It could be a what's it called? Bloopers.
A 30-minute blooper.
Yeah. That's how creative we are with our behind the scenes.
We'll just be like
we give you a crappy episode.
We'll just be like Warner Brothers and trash the whole episode. It's not worth it.
No, I don't think we should do that.